Welcome back to Sailing El Jaleo. Last week we made it down to Solomons, Maryland, where we stayed for the night in Back Creek. The next morning we got up early and headed back out into the bay where we crossed the mouth of the Potomac River, and we made it down to our favorite anchorage, which is Mill Creek. We stayed another 4 or 5 days there waiting out some more high winds. After that we got back out into the bay and made a short trip down to Jackson Creek. I think that's about as far as we'll make it this week, so we might as well go ahead and get right into it. Grab a drink, climb aboard, and let's get going. At the end of last week's episode, we made it down to Solomons, Maryland, and this was just for a quick overnighter. Now, I knew the next morning we'd be leaving in the dark, and the Solomons is a place where you can safely navigate in the dark. One trick that I like to do when leaving the Solomons specifically is there are lots of lights all the way around, and when you're leaving, it's always pretty calm, the water in there. It's very well protected. So all of those lights create a reflection off the water, and I just open up my field of vision really wide, and I take in all of the lights and all of the reflections, and they all kind of match up, and if any reflection goes out, I know there's something in the water over there. So it's kind of a visual radar. I just take it all in and I'll notice when stuff, blinks out, and then I know there's something in the water over there. Another thing that I do commonly, and not just in the Solomons, but everywhere, when I know I'm going to be leaving really early the next morning, I'll make a mental note of where everything is located. And let me turn down the radio. So when I go into a creek, I'll make a mental note of where all the crab pots are located, just their approximate location, and more importantly, how many of them there are. Like when going into the Solomons, there is a buoy that's like a speed marker, and then there's one mooring ball that's in my path of travel that I have to be aware of. So I just make a mental note of those things and where they're roughly located, so the next morning I'll know. If it's somewhere like Calabash Creek, there might be 4 or 5 crab pots, and I'll just notice their specific location. And then the next morning when I'm leaving, I got my spotlight, I can find those 5 crab pots, then I know I'm in the clear and I don't have to worry about running over something. So that's just 2 tricks that I do when leaving in the dark. Now, this was day 3 of a 3-day run down Chesapeake Bay. We got really fortunate, especially this year with the way the weather's been, that we had 3 days in a row where the wind, the waves, there was no rain, everything lined up where we could actually make a good run down the bay. And this was day 3 of that. So it was about 42 miles down to Mill Creek, and it's the Mill Creek that's located just south of the Potomac, so there are a million Mill Creeks everywhere. But that's one of our favorite, that is probably our second favorite anchorage of anywhere that we've ever been. And that's primarily, it's a great spot. It's very protected, but it reminds me of the lake I grew up on, so it's, I've got a soft spot for it. But a lot of people like that anchorage, so it's a very popular one. And once we got down to Mill Creek, we were expecting another 4 or 5 days of high winds. So we wanted to, in these 3 days that we had, we did get about halfway down Chesapeake Bay, or we made it, between 45 and 50% of the way. So it was a good stretch, or a good run for us. And of course, as soon as we were pulling into Mill Creek, the camera died. Anyone who's used a GoPro knows that the batteries don't last very long. I think maybe 40-45 minutes on a good battery. So I actually do have like a big juice box. It actually has all the mounts and everything for it, and you run a cable from the juice box to the GoPro. It's like an external power source, and it used to last an entire day. Now I think it's dying. I've had that for 3 years now, so I don't think it holds as much charge anymore. So I'll have to get a new one of those, but that's neither here nor there. But one thing you probably will notice is that I did change up the view this year, so I've actually started mounting the camera on the back of the boat, and sorry about the sun. But I've started mounting the camera on the back of the boat so you get a little higher view, and then you get to see the boat and what's in front of it. Do you guys like that view? Do you prefer the view from the front of the boat? Was the view better up there? Should I mix them up? Do you like one versus the other better? Just let me know in the comments down below. I'd appreciate it, because I'm not sure about this new view, if it's a good one or not. So let me know what you think. But anyway, so pulling into Mill Creek, we knew that we were going to have high winds. They were going to be as high as 30 knots. And they were going to be coming from directions where we could get some chop in Mill Creek. So there's a couple different parts of Mill Creek. Once you get around the bend, there's a larger area and some waves can get choppy in there if there's a really strong wind that's blowing down Mill Creek, which it was projected to do. So I decided to go further into Mill Creek. We had never gone up, but you can go another, I think it was 1.2 miles is what we ended up going, and you end up right by JC Vineyards. They've got docks up there. I guess I've never been there, but it's a vineyard. They have wines and food, and it's kind of a neat place. I know a lot of boaters go up there to go for that. And so we decided to go up there because as you go up Mill Creek, the sides go up. There's like a bank. It's like a raised bank all the way around it. So you're almost like down in a little bit of a canyon. Not a high one. Maybe the banks only go up maybe 40 or 50, 60, 80 feet, whatever they are. But, you know, it gives you more protection. And, of course, the banks are all tree lined, so it does give you, and it's a smaller area, so you do get more protection from the winds. And we'd never been up there, so we decided to go up Mill Creek and just try and compare it to, you know, if you stayed closer towards the entrance of the creek, how the chop would be different between the two locations. So the anchorage of Mill Creek was very nice. It was very well protected. It, you know, when the high winds came in, it was very calm back there. It didn't get choppy or anything. But it does have one drawback, and that is with the raised banks, the cell reception is even poorer than it is out by the mouth of Mill Creek. And I had to upload a video, so we actually had to go back out and anchor in the larger area where we had better cell reception for one night, just so I could upload a video. And just in case you guys didn't know, I do record and edit everything in 4K. So down in the corner over there somewhere, there's a little gear icon, and you can actually change the resolution. And if your internet will support it, change it to 4K, because the videos look a lot better. So I think the default is like maybe 1080, but you know, I think the 4K videos look a lot better. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So we did have to go back out and anchor in the larger part of Mill Creek while I uploaded a video, and it took like 24 hours to upload it. The cell reception in Mill Creek is very poor, even just in the best of times, let alone up the creek. So it was, so we stayed there for one night, and it actually did get choppy. Once the winds kicked up to over 30 knots, in the bigger part it did get choppy, but you know, the next morning we went back up to our previous anchorage, and it's nice and calm up there. You have like little 2-inch waves. It was absolutely wonderful being up there. I think that's probably one of the best hidey holes that we've ever found in Chesapeake Bay. I'm sure there's a million of them that are good hiding spots, but that's a very good one for bad weather. After hunkering down for 4 or 5 days in Mill Creek waiting out the high winds, it was time to get back on the road again. And normally we would leave a little bit closer to First Light and try and make it all the way down to Hampton, but this year we had a unique issue. We were having a resource problem. Now, you know, this is our 5th trip down the ICW, and the first year was a little rocky, but after that we ironed everything out. We knew where the best spots to stop for water and fuel were, and we kind of spaced everything out, so it all worked out good. We could get a couple loads of laundry in between each water stop. We had enough drinking water, we had enough resources, fuel to make it, you know, not only for our heater, but you know, for our drinking water and everything, to make it between stops. But this year, with all the weather delays, we weren't burning through our resources any quicker. We were just being delayed from making progress down the bay to where our first normal rewater and refuel would have been, which would have been at Atlantic Yacht Basin, which is just south of Norfolk in Chesapeake, Virginia. So that would be our normal first stop, but especially because of the cold weather, we were burning through diesel for our heater way faster than we had in previous years. So I was down By the time we got to Solomon's, I was down to about 10 gallons or half of our supply for the heater, and that made me a little bit nervous. We still had a reasonable amount of water left, but I was concerned about our fuel, not to run EJ's diesel, but to run the heater specifically. So I wanted to stop. I think it's Spring Cove Marina in Solomon's. I had the bumpers out and everything. In the video, you might have noticed I slowed down right in that region. And I contacted Spring Cove, and they were actually out of diesel that day. And I think it was a Friday. It was either a Friday or a Saturday that we got there, and they weren't going to have any more till Monday. And because the weather was so good, we had to travel. So I could have gone to a different marina to get diesel, but I thought, you know, we'll go to Mill Creek. We'll burn through we'll burn through about half of what we have left, but then we can get down to Jackson Creek and I can buy diesel, and then it'll even be a better spot to get, you know, more water, because we will have used a week's worth of water in in Mill Creek. So it would be a better spot in Jackson Creek. We'll get a little tighter, you know, we'll get a little closer to running out of diesel for the heater than I would like, but you know, let's just wait till we get down to Jackson Creek. So we were heading down to Jackson Creek to refuel and rewater, and that's why we didn't try to make the run all the way down to Hampton. So as I was pulling into Jackson Creek, you know, I didn't realize it was a Saturday, and we got there at 1 p.m. It was just a short trip between Mill Creek and Jackson Creek. I think it's like 23 miles. So we got there around 1 p.m., and as I was pulling in, I was trying to contact the Jackson Creek Marina, and on Saturday they close at noon. And they weren't open on Sunday, and the next day was another good day to travel. So it's like, oh my goodness, two attempts and fails to try and resupply on diesel and water. And at this point we were getting pretty lean, not only on drinking water but also on diesel. So it wasn't quite an emergency situation yet, but I knew once we got down to Hampton, I was going to have to get diesel at a minimum, and see how long we were going to be stuck at Hampton, because then I might run into a drinking water issue as well. So the weather delays this year have really thrown a wrench into a lot of our normal procedures as far as, you know, resupplies. So it's been an interesting year. Jackson Creek is a wonderful anchorage. It's very well protected. It's got a huge sandbar right at the entrance that protects it from large waves from Chesapeake Bay. And from what I understand, the marina there will allow you to use their car to go reprovision, so a lot of people do that. I think it's like a $5 fee or something, but something very reasonable. I've never done it, but I understand that's how it works. So it's a great anchorage. It's a great spot to stay and wait out bad weather if you have to.
Tried over and over to be happy again, but I can't seem to get over thinking this will never end. Too many beautiful nights I spend my time alone. Can't seem to have an appetite for getting up out the door, but I'll get my shit together one of these days, and I'll start to feel better. Maybe I can change, and I'll realize it's not so bad once I get out of my head. I'll get my shit together one of these days. I've tried every morning to wake up an optimist, but all I can do today is just try to exist. Too many years gone to waste on what was never me, waiting for things to change, never knowing what I need. But I'll get my shit together one of these days, and I'll start to feel better. Maybe I can change, and I'll realize it's not so bad once I get out of my head. I'll get my shit together one of these days. find a way to be okay when the world falls down on me. I'm gonna leave this place for another state where I can finally be free. I gotta believe that I'll get my shit together one of these days, and I'll start to feel better. And I'll realize it's not so bad once I get out of my head. I'll get my shit together one of these days. Yeah, yeah, one of these days. I'm gonna get my shit together.
And that's all we have time for this week. I would like to give a massive shout out to my Patreon crew. Without your guys' support, I would not make these videos. I've contemplated quitting a few times, but thanks to your guys' support, I've decided to continue on. And my Patreon crew is Joan and Juddy Judnick, Val and Chris Alcorn, Eli Sackett, Sherry Erickson, Deb Shaw, Matthew Spotten, Kristen Ashton and Peter Allen, Natalie Linehan, and Trisha and Robert Johnson. Thank you guys so very much for your support. It really does mean the world to me. I wouldn't do this without you, so thank you very much. I do have one legacy patron member. Her name is Joan Linbo, and unfortunately she has passed on, but she lives on in our hearts forever. We really miss you, Joan. If you are interested in joining our Patreon crew, there is a link in the description down below where you can join Patreon. It's absolutely free. You don't have to pay for anything, and you'll get half of the bonus content for free. If you do want to join and throw us a couple of bucks, we won't turn you down. If you do like our videos, please do like, comment, and subscribe. That really helps us out with the algorithm and all this other garbage. I don't know how it works, but they say it helps, so hit that thumbs up button. Alrighty, I hope y'all are well, and we'll see you next week.